Welcome to another episode of the Misfits of Real Estate. Today, we'd like to welcome Tom Rauen. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. You can correct me here in a minute. A visionary entrepreneur who's not just shaped the custom apparel industry with 1-800 t-shirts, but has also made a remarkable impact in real estate. In the face of COVID-19 crisis, Tom's business, Envision Tees, faced unprecedented challenges, with revenue dropping drastically. Tom made the tough decision to restructure, even filing for unemployment as an entrepreneur. During this period of uncertainty, Tom turned to commercial real estate, an asset that had consistently provided stability in tough times. Embracing this insight, Tom rapidly built a $55 million real estate portfolio in just 3 years. Focusing on net lease commercial real estate, he managed to grow this portfolio as a side hustle while revitalizing his main business. This strategic shift not only secured his company's resurgent post-COVID, but also led to his passive income surpassing his business income, offering unprecedented security and freedom. Let's join us now as we dive into Tom's journey of resilience, innovation, and how diversifying into real estate has been a game changer in his entrepreneurial career. So without any further ado, let's bring Tom on. Hey, Tom, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey guys, happy to be here.
Awesome.
So did Mark butcher your last name? Is it Rauen?
Probably.
Nailed it. That's perfect.
Perfect. I try. We usually kick it off just having you open up a little bit to the audience, give them some background and flavor on where you come from, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in Iowa called Farley, Iowa, and currently living in Dubuque, Iowa. And started the t-shirt business in my parents' basement right after graduating from college. I've been doing that for the last 18 years. Partway into kind of this t-shirt journey as the business kept growing, my first commercial property, we kind of house hacked a commercial property where we bought it. We operate the business out of one part of it, and then we subdivided it and leased out the others to another tenant, and that tenant was basically paying for the mortgage while we were in there. And then after that, we continued to grow, increasing the size of the business that we needed and stuff like that, up until, like you said, everything that happened with the pandemic. We had to make a little shift. And that's when, the triple net lease world opened up for me. And we started bringing investors on as well to just create that passive income, build that long-term wealth, and have that backstop or that cushion for the business.
That's incredible. There's so many things to pick on from this opening. I would have thought that COVID would have been a boon for t-shirts because everybody was stuck at home, surfing the internet, and what are they going to do? They're going to buy stupid stuff like t-shirts with cool logos and stuff. But maybe that wasn't the case. And then, how did you go from 0 to 55 million in 3 years? It's just that's got to be an incredible story.
Yeah. So the first property we bought that was triple net lease was BioLife Plasma, and that was in 2018. And so we had that, and after about a year of that property, I was like, wow, this is really fascinating that you can own something. You don't even have, I don't even know who to call there to contact. I don't have keys to the place. They don't know how to contact me, and they just do everything. And so it was just amazing. After the year, I'm like, wow, I can get this recurring income every month. I don't have to waste any time or energy, mental bandwidth, anything like that on this property. And I continue to focus on the main business. So I kind of knew that. And then, 2019 leading into 2020, I talked to some other people and learned that driving down the street, I didn't know. I just assumed McDonald's owned McDonald's and Starbucks owned Starbucks, and all the other national chains were just owned by the actual tenant in there. But a guy in our town owned a number of Dollar Generals and some different properties, and he started telling me, he's like, no, this is a whole world out there of triple net lease. And that's when kind of the light bulb moment went off, as we were struggling in 2020. It's like, all right, there's a formula out there. We've got to do this. And I knew coming out of the pandemic would be a good time to capitalize on just everything that was happening in the economy and the world at that point.
Very cool.
So triple net, I mean, that's completely random. Most people think like, I'm going to do multifamily and that sort of thing. So was there somebody that inspired you or a story that inspired you to take that route in terms of doing triple net with nationals?
No, it was just getting that first property, and a banker brought it to my attention because the former owner, he was the developer. He had cancer and was doing some estate planning stuff. So it was an off-market deal. And that really is the catalyst that kind of opened my eyes to it. And once I started looking at it more, most people, when they start looking at like fix and flip or Airbnb or multifamily, it's how do I build this up to replace my W-2 income and get out of the rat race, right? And my thinking was, no, I love the business that I've built. I want to continue doing that. And I don't want the real estate to take away any of the time or energy. So I was kind of forced into that triple net space where I knew like, all right, we can continue to grow and scale this up without it taking a lot of extra time and resources. And I can still focus on the main business.
Sweet.
How did you structure that first deal?
How do I find what?
How did you structure that first deal, that first commercial deal?
Yeah, so the first deal, we had a little bit of cash on hand. We basically used the business line of credit, and then did a note with an uncle that was a short-term debt note. And so the biggest thing is like piecing kind of all that together, and then knowing like, all right, we're going to pay my uncle off first with the cash flow, and then after that pay back. And I knew over time, like we'd pay back the line of credit through the business and things like that. So really had to get resourceful and piece together kind of multiple things to make it happen.
Okay. And then scaling from there, did you bring in other investors, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so scaling from there, in 2021, we did 4 syndications. And so that was just bringing together friends and family. A couple people were like, hey, I love this concept. I like the idea, but I don't want to be with a group of people. So do you want to just JV on a couple properties? And so we have a couple properties that we JV'd on. We have a couple that we did with syndication. And then we continued to refinance some of the properties that we already had equity built up in and buy some more for our personal portfolio at that time. And it was just a matter of like looking at the dynamics of each property and thinking like, okay, which one is going to work best for the syndication? Which one's going to work best for maybe a JV? And what one do we want to bring into our personal portfolio? And while some of the triple net leases are like 100% hands off and passive, some of the other ones, the strip centers and things like that, we're still doing a few things where we're taking care of the CAM and billing back, the maintenance and stuff like that. And so those are the ones we tend to, because they have more moving parts to them, we tend to bring those into our personal portfolio.
Gotcha. So fast forwarding to now, like, have you done a ground up development with any of these national retailers now that you have relationships with those people?
No, everything has been stabilized. A few. So right now we've got 18 properties. A few of them have been value add, but most of them have been just stabilized 10 to 25-year leases where there's no guesswork. And part of it is like, we know we're not hitting grand slams with those. And so we're not going to see, a 20 or 30% IRR or anything like that. But we know like we're minimizing the risk and that wealth preservation as well, where it's like, okay, Starbucks is going to be paying for the next 10 or 15 years. We know exactly where their rent bumps are. We know exactly what our financing is locked in at for the next 5 or 7 years. And with no other expenses, like that pro forma for the next, 10 years is pretty much locked in. And so we'd like to have that where it's like, all right, we know what's happening. The investor updates are actually kind of boring because there's not a lot to, update on. It's like, well, Starbucks is still selling coffee. They're still paying rent every month. And that's really all. So we just try to keep it as simple as possible. And again, I was forced to keep it simple because of the main business. I don't have a lot of extra time to be doing value adds, be chasing down tenants, and just like all the other stuff that goes with it.
So do you think moving forward, you're going to focus more on real estate, or do you still love operating your other companies?
I really enjoy both. And, it's two different scales. So in the t-shirt business, we're selling t-shirts between $5 and $10. In the real estate business, we're buying properties that are between 3 million and 5 million. And so it's kind of a different dynamic of scale when it comes to like revenue and, profit and things like that. But I really like the creative side of the t-shirt business. I've been doing it for 18 years. I love, working with our team here, and I like having that passive income and the real estate, even, some of the tenants, and being able to support them as, as a patron and within our town, helping build them up. And we always look at our tenants as long-term partners. And I look at the same thing as our clients in the t-shirt business, like they're long-term partners. I play the long game in both businesses. And it's like, I want both to continue going for a long time. And I look at what this looks like for, possibly my kids or my grandkids someday.
So Tom, how do you mitigate the risk with, during the pandemic, we saw it firsthand, right? Oh God, what was it? Cheesecake Factory basically said, all right, screw you. We're not paying rent. Now you can go after us. Or retailers going dark when they don't have a lot of duration left on their lease. And, sometimes people, you're buying these things at a premium to replacement cost because of the lease, the lease interest in it. So how do you go in terms of like, if you had like a few different things you use to, measure risk or certain factors with making heads or tails of these opportunities?
Yeah. So first off, location, like we want the best location in, these small to medium sized towns. So like Dubuque is roughly a population of 60, 70,000, what's metro area of about 100,000. And so we know there's limited competition for the tenants that are already in there. If we're at the corner of Main and Main, that's like one of the criteria as well. Like, all right, where's this at? If somebody goes dark or moves out, can we have somebody else lined up, like basically wanting to fill that space right away? We just had an instance where a cell phone store moved out. Within like a week of listing it, we've got a new tenant moving in already. And so we look at that. We look at the building itself, not a Pizza Hut where, if they move out, like, hey, it's a Pizza Hut. So we try to look, is it more of a box? Is it a vanilla box that can be rebranded with a different sign and maybe just a little bit of work to, outfit it for a new tenant? And then the lease structure. So dealing with these national tenants, whether it's local or national, every lease is a little bit different. So you want to look for, in the last 2 years, a lot of them have been adding a COVID clause or a government shutdown type clause. So you want to look at those and be aware, like, what is the opt-outs? What are, what's the tools that they're possibly going to use against you? And just be aware of them. And sometimes if that risk of having like those clauses in the lease could outweigh what the potential return is. And then we also look at, what is that dollar per square foot on replacement costs and everything else. And you kind of factor that in with the location of like, okay, is this ridiculous? Are we paying, $2,000 a square foot for, a Starbucks that is, a 10 foot by 10 foot building? Drive-through, most of the drive-through coffee there, the dollar per square foot just doesn't make sense. So we look and make sure like a lot of those factors kind of check all the underwriting boxes.
Are you able to negotiate those lease terms like the COVID clause, or they're basically, no, it's our attorneys drafted it, take it or leave it?
So far with most of them, we haven't, because we've been purchasing some stabilized with the lease already in place. So then it's, before we purchase, it's the underwriting of looking and saying, all right, this is already in place. We have no control over this. One of the other factors we're looking at, especially with inflation right now, is how many options are on it and what do those look like? Right now, I would rather have a lease with no options, or even a shorter term that we know we can bump up that rent and, get that up to rate. Whereas, some of the Starbucks or McDonald's is pretty famous for this. They'll have 6, 8, 10 5-year options. So it's like, okay, they're controlling their lease rate for the next 50 years. That kind of takes a lot of things out of the game when they're controlling at, where versus if there's no options left, you're going up to market rate, and that gives you a little bit more upside on that.
No, it definitely drives me nuts when I have brokers that bring me deals and the spaces we have available, and they're like, "Hey, I got you a 5-year lease and 2 5-year options." I'm like, "Dude, like options are only to the advantage of the tenant, not the landlord." Okay, so so it's it's unbelievable sometimes, and sometimes people just like associate some type of value to it, but actually takes away value on a property. Because when a tenant wants to come to me with a 5-year lease with 5-year options, to me that's a 15-year lease.
Mhm.
That's only exercisable extended at their discretion solely.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest misconception I think they need to teach all brokers in the space, and a lot of times you'll get that from a residential broker, right, or agent that just doesn't know, and they think, oh my God, I got you, 15 or 20 years. I'm like, no, you didn't. You got me 5 years, and then you got me locked in for the other ones where I have no control, to do the thing. So, and even tenants don't understand that either, where it's like the tenant doesn't even, in a lot of cases, especially if you're dealing with local tenants, they don't understand the option is in their favor, not ours.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I especially like, if there's a tenant that's coming in that's taking space as is and doing a lot of leasehold improvements to the property, but they don't, they don't want to be locked into it, because I don't deal with a lot of triple net lease deals. And this is like I'm dealing with a lot of mom and pops, like bakeries and all that stuff. I could definitely appreciate that, especially if they're going in and improving the space tremendously. Otherwise, I'm not too much into it. So, what type of financing do you typically get on these deals? I've heard of like a zero cash flow financing was something I heard before, that the bank will basically lend money on triple net lease deals with nationals on a one to one DSCR, and basically you amortize it so that you get no cash flow out of the deal, but you get the thing free and clear by the end of it. So how are you financing these deals?
So most of them have been, we put 20% down, amortized at 25 years. We have one, as a FedEx building that was a 1-to-1. Other than that, we try to keep it 1.15 or 1.25 on the DSCR, so all of them have been bank financed, and we've got one that we closed on this year that was seller financed, and we structured that at 4.5% for 3 years, and then 2 years at 5%. And at any point in time, if we can get traditional financing at 5% or under, we would buy out that contract.
Have you been the KP on the projects, or have you had to bring in a KP for the financing piece?
I've been the KP on all of them. And so I think, we started off small, where, our first deal was like 1.2 million, and then 1.5, and then 1.7, then we're getting into the 2s and then the 3s. So like, I feel like we stepped up their portfolio enough that we were having equity and enough backstop, and kind of diversified into different asset classes as well. So we've got, quick service restaurants, we have industrial, medical, some strip centers, and a few other things there. So like, we look at the whole portfolio and say, all right, how do we make sure we're diversified? So if everything in one area kind of hits a road bump in the economy, we're not going to be getting emails or calls for, rent abatement or something across the board.
For people that might be listening to this and thinking, wow, this guy went from 0 to 55 million in 3 years, I want to do that. What would you tell them would be good to do as far as training and education and learning, how you got into syndication and how you really scaled your business at such an incredible pace?
So I'm a ultra runner. So I run anywhere from 50 to 100 miles a week. And so I have a lot of time where I'm listening to audiobooks, podcasts, things like that. So I pretty much within a year plowed through probably 30 some books, a ton of podcasts, and then but there's only so much you can learn from that. Some of it's real world stuff where you really got to get into the weeds. So then, found a local mentor that was doing similar thing and just asking questions. And then got in a mastermind group and the same thing, surrounded myself with people already doing it and not being afraid to ask questions, figure it out as we go and just keep getting better every day.
Thinking back, are there any key books or people or anything that, you would highly recommend as far as starting spots for people?
Gosh, it's so different because it depends because, I'm in Raise Masters and that that book was, I forget what the actual title of the book is. But raising capital is definitely different than, figuring out deal structure or leases and everything else. So I feel like every little stepping stone was a little bit different. And so it's always looking at different groups of all right, who is the best at raising capital? And then who is the best at figuring out deal structure? And then who's the best in the commercial world? And then a lot of it, the hard part was finding the great vendors and partners. So the SEC attorney, a good accountant, the who's going to be doing cost segregations, things like that. So that took some trial and error where we worked with someone, we quickly realized it may not have been a good fit. We moved on to the next. And then we vetted those with others in the industry of saying, all right, who are you using? What are the results you've gotten with that person? And that was probably the biggest learning curve was working with a vendor that didn't match us and then finding a new one and making that pivot as quickly as possible.
That's awesome.
So what's on the horizon for you? I guess what's the goal with your real estate business?
We're still trying to figure that out. So obviously with the interest rates where they're at right now, the market inventory is pretty low. This market segment is really kind of in a tough spot. You have to work a lot harder. So right now we're looking at, off-market deals, sellers that are willing to do seller financing, and so we can still get that cap rate to financing spread and make the deal cash flow and have that upside that we need. So right now, we're working hard to find those. They're really hard, but then we're also being very patient, making sure because we did scale so fast in the last couple of years, we're going back, making sure we have kind of our back end systems and processes set up and making sure that as things start turning even more in the economy, we're ready to jump back on the gas pedal a little bit harder. So right now, I feel like we're in this in-between period of resetting, of making sure everything's set up, but then having the patience to find the right deal and make sure our capital is allocated to, the best deals that are out there.
So would you ever consider start going to ICSC conferences, building relationships with real estate managers with some of these nationals, and then finding out what they're looking at in certain markets, and then then doing some ground up stuff?
Yeah. So I'm looking at going to ICSC, and And we've been getting relationships built with just more bankers, lawyers, brokers, everything in the industry, specific to the triple net world. And as far as ground up development, I'm not sure if it's because like I'm a visionary and like this creative side of my brain or whatever, but I don't speak the same language as construction contractors. And I find it very frustrating and hard to do. So if we do kind of go down that path, it would definitely be either partnering with somebody or hiring somebody to kind of focus on that area.
Yeah, because like a lot of developers, I mean, they'll just basically they'll work with in terms of site selection criteria, get sites locked up, get them entitled, improved, get a lease signed, and then just flip the paper over to institutionals, and for like we're talking about sometimes $1 million to $2 million of profit at a time. So if you can keep that spread in house on a long term hold, that's definitely a thing. I mean, I was just blown away by one of my colleagues at a company I used to work for was what's that?
Sorry, my window's open because it's hot.
Okay, but yeah, one of my colleagues, when he left the company, he did just that. I mean, he got basically a site locked up, had a retailer, knew exactly what they're looking for, got it approved, and then basically, I think he like flipped the paper for like $1 million bucks. I was like, dude, why don't you just hold on to it and kept that equity? He's like, I don't know. It's like I kind of needed the money.
Yeah, it's super intriguing, and for me, we've only exited one deal, which we 1031 into a longer one, and so for me, it's maybe trying to find that balance of quick wholesale on a deal or a quick development and exit, and then redeploy that capital into a long-term 25-year lease, something that's completely passive. So I think it's finding that balance. And then same with the value add, especially right now where it's like, okay, if you can find someone that's getting pinched and they're, having some trouble, whatever the case may be, but adding that value, maybe holding for a couple of years, and then exiting out of that, again, taking that capital, redeploying it, something just long-term, completely hands-off. So I think it's looking forward, it's kind of finding what is that balance of quick exit to push stuff into the long term.
Sweet.
Are you gonna diversify into any kind of like multifamily or self-storage, industrial type stuff? Or are you gonna stick with the commercial?
No multifamily. So I'm also looking at a few really good operators and saying, all right, how can we invest as LP investors into some of those deals to get that diversification? And then we did a JV partnership with somebody that specializes in Airbnbs. And so we've got one Airbnb down in Scottsdale. And personally, that was just kind of a selfish thing of, I want to go down there when it's 0 degrees in Iowa during the winter and have a place that we can stay, and hopefully we get the appreciation and cash flow from that as well.
Are you worried at all about a recession and what the ramifications might be on a commercial portfolio?
No, I feel really strong. So what happened in like 2008, 2009, 2010, we didn't really feel that a whole lot in the state of Iowa. So I feel like Iowa is kind of in this small bubble. It's the blips are not going to be as big as what you're seeing on the coast or some of these bigger markets that are having like rapid growth. And I don't know why it is. I don't know if it's just like people in Iowa have like their head down, and each community is like going to work and doing their thing and ignoring all the propaganda with the news and everything else. And so it's just kind of a stabilized economy where we're growing at a slow rate. There's not a whole lot of shakeup when things happen. And so I just feel comfortable about that. I feel really good about our tenants, the tenant mix that we have, the locations that our properties are in. So yeah, that's where I say like we're cautiously have 1 foot on the brake pedal and building up some of those reserves that if something does happen, we're ready to make adjustments as needed.
I'm sure having people like Dollar General is going to keep you a little recession proof too, though.
Yeah, and BioLife Plasma is, people always ask like, what's my favorite property? That one is. They were like crazy during the pandemic because they were getting the I forget what it was called, like all the immunity and stuff, like they were pulling with that. So we figured out that BioLife, whether it's in an up market or down market, like people are going to donate plasma to get money and do things. So like that property there, I know is like feels super stabilized.
So, Tom, on the subject of commercial, what is the biggest mistake you've ever made in your commercial real estate business?
I think probably not starting sooner. And, so as I got started, and we'd bought the first property, where we did this, house hack on a commercial property in 2012, and that was for the t-shirt business. Still along that time frame from 2012 to 2018, I was looking at stuff, but I didn't have the capital to pull the trigger. And I think it was just not asking enough questions and not understanding some of it, not realizing that like, hey, you can, besides just borrowing money from your uncle, you can actually put together a group of investors and you can do a syndication and all this stuff. So like not knowing that or not learning that fast enough, because I look at several deals I was underwriting and I was doing, and I just couldn't figure out how to come up with the down payment for. And some of those just ended up to be, over the last 10 years, just complete home runs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like totally missed that opportunity.
What are some of your favorite podcasts?
So speaking of,
Sorry, Matt.
Yep.
I was just going to ask, what are some of your favorite podcasts that you're listening to? It doesn't have to be real estate or commercial.
Let's see here. So right now, I like listening to Real Estate Syndication Show with Whitney Sewell.
Yep.
Business Lunch with Roland Frazier. And Roland talks all about acquiring other businesses, no money down. So a lot of the stuff he talks about there, and he's just a really good marketer, can apply across a lot of different industries. Money Mondays, Dan Fleshman. Those are probably the top three on my daily go-to.
So on that subject, Tom, you run about what 50 to 100 miles a week.
Yeah.
So what do you listen to while you're running?
So again, it's a mix between audiobooks and podcasts, and I listen at 2x speed. And so sometimes on a Saturday or Sunday, my run could range anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. So I'm able to knock out one book in one session of running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've the reason why I knew you were going to answer with that, because I talk to people quite often. Like, I just don't have time to educate myself. It's like, oh, do you listen to those podcasts? I've been meaning to, but I just haven't had the time. I'm like, do you listen to music? And they're like, oh yeah, no, absolutely. I listen to this. Blah, blah. I'm like, stop listening to music. Like, listen to podcasts. Listen to those things you might want to do, because that's actually investing in yourself. And like, well, I like to give it 100% of my attention. I'm like, okay, nobody sits in their living room in their chair and listens to like an audiobook or something like that. And like, in terms of meditation mode, it took me some time because I lift weights and stuff like that. I work out. It was kind of weird listening to, let's say, like Reed Goosens or, an economist podcast while it was like, and stuff like that. But I got used to it over time. I was like, I used to, listen to like crust punk and like death metal and stuff like that. But, now I'm like listening to podcasts. And I actually, like, it took me a couple times, but I got used to it. I'm like, and I've just been able to just educate myself, so much better by utilizing my time that way.
Yeah, and I also do it while commuting. So, I've got some meetings once a month that I have a 3-hour car drive both ways to work. It's about a 15-minute commute. I think the biggest on the consumption is being able to get up to 2x speed. And so some people will be like, how is that even possible? And so you start off at the 1x and then you do it at 1.25. And after like a couple weeks of that, you can go up to 1.5. After a couple weeks of that, you go up to 1.75. Like you just keep bumping it up. And my brain is moving at the speed right now to like interpret and comprehend all that at that 2x speed, that if I listen at 1x, it sounds like they're going in slow motion, and their voices are actually really weird to me at the 1x speed, and I have a hard time understanding it or just doing it at 1x now because I'm so used to doing it at 2x speed.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm 2x all the way. There are some authors, when they're speaking though, I can't have them at 2x just because of their intonation and like how their like speech like trails off sometimes. I have to dial them back, and it makes me so mad because I'm like, I want to be listening at 2x, but I can't.
I don't know if I can do it. It's like, am I listening to like Alvin and the Chip?
You get used to it.
I feel like I'm defiling their soul by doing that.
I saw you can now do this like on Netflix.
So
too.
Tom. Oh geez. Tom, I wanted to ask you about the uncle situation. So we got the holidays coming up, and I always talk to investors like that are looking to position themselves to raise capital. They're like, I don't want to do business with friends and family. Like, I just want to keep those things completely separate. And somebody that was on my show a while ago, young kid, like doing killer like real estate deals, named Jason Nichols, and he's like, if you can't do business with friends and family, then who can you do business with? And also like, why not keep it in the family? Because all those people that made serious sacrifices to put you where you are right now did so to pass the generational wealth torch onto you and then onto your kids and future generations as well. So what do you say about like, do you talked about real estate and real estate deals like during the holiday season, that sort of thing? Did you ever do that with friends and family while you were kind of gearing this?
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to just sit there and like, pitch it and shove it down their throat.
Yeah, no, of course.
But I think, like you have an obligation to like, why would you not? Like, I always think if I was getting investors on a deal and it's all people I didn't know, my friends and family are going to be mad at me for not letting them in. Like, they're going to be like, what's up? Like, why did you hold out on me? Like, why didn't you tell me about this? You're making like this other guy all kinds of money. And so I just think of that frame of mind of like, would they be mad if I didn't give them this opportunity?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the other thing too is like, yeah, you don't want to like go to like family gatherings, like, with a pitch, with a pitch deck and stuff like that. But, I think that one to many in terms of just like talking to people. I mean, 99% of people out in the world, I do believe, want to own real estate, but the reason why they don't is because of the 4 T's: the tenants, trash, toilets, and most importantly, time. And so if, there's sometimes people, they've never thought that they could have a gateway to real estate investing other than investing in a REIT, like a publicly traded stock and stuff like that. So, sometimes with those things, like the conversations will go like, hey, if you're interested in talking about this more, like, let's set up like, time to get together for a lunch or coffee and we can talk about it, or if they come in from far away lands and that sort of thing, we can set up a Zoom or whatever, and further the conversation from there.
Yeah. I think, just people not knowing, and I mean, I didn't know this until, before 2019, like that, what a syndication is, that you can actually be a limited partner and, invest in other people's deals where they have the expertise. They're finding that they're going through all the work and they're doing it. And you're just sitting back, getting, whether it's monthly or quarterly distributions. and, finding that operator that has a deal that's going to be specific to what you're looking for, whether it's, that monthly or quarterly cash flow, or if it's long-term wealth. That is the biggest thing. Like, people just don't know, because it isn't like, especially, you can't advertise a lot of these unless, it's the 506C. But even then, it's accredited investor. So how does this non-accredited investor that's trying to, build up some passive income, trying to build up some wealth, they just don't know, because like the education isn't out there. I feel like it's hiding somewhere. So that's like my biggest thing, is when we have conversations, or, when I'm at a networking event, or, wherever, it's just letting them understand, like, hey, there's different alternatives than the stock market or your 401k.
Yeah. So that being said, speaking of vehicles for your raises, are you been doing the C, B, Reg A, Reg A plus? Like, how have you structured your syndications?
So the first 4 we did was a 506B, and that was mainly because it was all friends and family. Currently, we've got a fund open that's a 506C, and I'm learning that it's actually, for me, I feel like it's a lot more difficult, because I have a lot of friends, family, people in our community that want to invest, but they're non-accredited. And so, I'm educating them and everything else. And, so I think after we close this fund, at some point, we'll do another 506B down the road.
Cool.
Are you exploring outside of your Iowa market, or are you still pretty content where you're at?
Yeah. So, I've been guest on a lot of podcasts, kind of turning it up a little bit on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. So I've had a lot of people reaching out, beyond, my sphere of influence here in Iowa. So we've got investors now from probably 10 different states.
Mark, I know this is weird. I just we have a little bit of delay, so I'm just like, I don't want to like jump in and like monopolize Tom. So
No, you're doing good. How do we have more delay now that I've got this Ethernet cord plugged in? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Tom, I've been like, for like weeks, I've been like, because like Mark is using a super high resolution camera. So I was like, dude, you have to hardwire your computer into the internet, or else you're going to have like resolution problems and that sort of thing. So he finally did it, and Mark looks absolutely like gorgeous today. So, so Tom, actually, in terms of acquisition of the future, would you consider like a portfolio of triple net properties and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. And, somebody asked me that on the current, our current portfolio of 18 properties. We have 2 Starbucks, but then nothing else, repeats. So they're like, well, wouldn't a good strategy be to build up the entire portfolio of the same thing? And, I've looked at that, but I like this kind of diversification in the mix that we currently have. But I'm open to, looking at acquiring a portfolio. And I think even a mixed portfolio might be just as attractive as one that's all the same tenant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reason I asked is a guy that had my podcast yesterday, actually, Cole Bigby. I don't know if you've met him before or gotten connected with him.
I have not.
Okay, so his family owns Bigby building, they have a steel building company, and so he's been building Dollar Generals, is it Family Dollar and Dollar Trees, and so, so like his plan is like to develop it and then to sell those deals, and so I should connect you together on LinkedIn, actually. So yeah, because he's got a pretty interesting model, because he owns a piece of the vertical in the ground up, so that'd be pretty cool.
No, it's great. I love that.
Sorry, I've been getting distracted over here on the side with, I got an application that's due in a couple hours, and they keep asking me these stupid questions that I've already answered like 100 times.
All right, so Mark, just jump down my throat if I'm just trying to be like, not like a total hog here. So All right. So, Tom, with your marketing through, building your network for capital raising, you have a 506c offering. So that's definitely, getting outside of your sphere of influence. Like, what types of things have you been using that you feel kind of really work for you to even getting some success with, in terms of like converting this energy in thought leadership to, people that are at least having substantive conversations with you, if not writing checks.
Yeah, I think it's just, getting on podcasts, getting consistent with, um, you know, putting content out there, whether it's, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then also just being part of the conversation. So not only posting the content, but when others are talking about it. So like I said, whether any of the platforms, when someone posts something that resonates with you, or asks a question, to be able to jump on, answer that question, get in and be in on the conversation, because then people are like seeing that as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you use Bigger Pockets? Because that seems like a good platform for that type of Q&A type stuff. Or are there other platforms where you're seeing that engagement?
Yeah, I haven't really got on there a whole lot. I've posted a few things. For me, I look at the time, and it's really like, while I'm filling up with gas and I have like 2 minutes, then, I'll post on, it's easy to do a quick, post on Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is. Or if I'm, walking around or walking into a meeting or something like that. So a lot of my posting is like off the cuff, and just doing it when I get some like moments in time to do it quickly on my phone. And I feel like with Bigger Pockets, you're diving in and actually like consuming and really getting into it a little bit more.
So I've been, my wife has been telling me like, Matt, you need an email newsletter. And I'm like, I hate getting email. So I don't want to market to people in the way that I hate to be marketed to. But I got inspired the other day. I've been following this guy, Sabri Subi, who he's a YouTuber, like definitely, in the marketing realm of things. And he's like, if you took away everything from me, like my personal branding and that sort of thing, all I'd want is my email contacts for my, email distribution. And so, and the reason being is because it's like the one place that you can actually get somebody's focused attention, and not when they're just like scroll like essentially content these days, unfortunately, no matter how valuable it is, it's about like creating scroll stopping, right? Scroll stopping posts or pictures and all that stuff. And it just drives me nuts. So yeah, so he definitely changed my mind about that. And I'm gonna have to go hat in hand to my wife, and I'm gonna have to ask her, what the hell do I write about now? So do you have any email newsletter, or have you experimented with that at all, Tom?
I don't yet, but it's definitely one thing I'm working on. And so right now we just have, basically a quarterly update going to investors. And then if I run across something else that's fascinating, or maybe I go to a seminar or something, I want to share something with the group, then I'll put one out. But it's not like on hey, every Wednesday you're getting this newsletter. And I think some of that's just the time capacity to do it. But definitely I see the value in it. And I see the ones that, I'm signed up for, and I know the ones I like consuming. I know the ones that are garbage. And so it's like, all right, trying to study that and figure out like, all right, what is the value you can add to make it something someone wants to consume every week?
What about on the shirt side? Are you doing any direct like newsletter marketing type stuff, emails on the shirt side, or are you just
a little bit,
really?
Probably more, just because we got more staff,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take care of that.
Do you ever pillage from your staff to help you on the real estate side, or you keep it completely separate?
No, I keep them pretty separate. But yeah, I think there's definitely some overlap where I could utilize some of the resources here for the real estate side.
Yeah.
So Tom, how do you, a little bit random, but a little bit related to our business of real estate, how do you grow top line revenue for the t-shirt company? Do you utilize paid social ads and that sort of thing?
No paid social ads. It's a lot of organic guerrilla style marketing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like to do what I call marketing stunts. And so like one example is I broke the Guinness World Record for wearing 247 t-shirts at one time. We we've done a number of other things that have gone viral, across
Mm-hmm.
social media. And then we leverage a lot of media. So like yesterday, we were front page of the Wall Street Journal for an article. And so I look at opportunities like those and say, like, how can we do this guerrilla marketing style marketing without having to run paid ads and things like that. It's more of like attention based marketing, where it's like, how do I get people's attention and then get them to share it and remember us as well.
Yeah. I saw
Yeah, so
I was just gonna say real quick, I saw in Manhattan a Thai food place named their store Thai Food Near Me. That was the business name. And they're just crushing the Google ranking because anytime somebody types up Thai food near me, they rank first.
Yeah, it's the same concept. I love that.
Yeah. So Tom, is that where you kind of get your creativity out, is through the marketing end of things, or do you have somebody that helps you with that?
No, that's where I get my creativity out. So, I've been starting to apply a lot of those same, creative strategies on, the real estate as well.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thinking of viral content is tough. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah. So how do you get, I don't know, like, does the creativity just come to you like naturally, or do you have to like set aside time for yourself and basically like, okay, I'm just going to just jot down all these ideas and that sort of thing? Like, how does it process work for you specifically?
It comes to me pretty naturally. And then sometimes, so when I'm running on the trails, I'm going through the woods and like, there's a ton of inspiration there. And so, yeah, sometimes, when I'm there, like I'm constantly like, so the podcast could be going, a book could be going, whatever, but my brain is still like, there's just a lot happening. And I don't know if it's just that environment of being like the solitude of being on the trails and in the woods and everything else, but like, it just comes to me. And then, but not everyone hits. So I think the biggest thing is, when you come up with an idea for content, for whether it's a Facebook post or LinkedIn or whatever, not everyone's going to go viral. And so we've had some that have done that have been like crickets. But then we've had several, and there's a little bit of a method to the madness. But we've had several where usually about once every 2 years, we'll get a couple that hit really well. And then I get on a media blitz where, I'm doing interviews with the BBC and CNN and, a correspondent in China or something like that. And so we're the ones that do hit, it's not just like local media. It's like, all right, we're getting national and international news to pick up on it and just get a lot of traction from that.
What did those viral posts look like? Like, can you give us any insight?
Yeah. So one, when we had the polar vortex in Iowa, it was like negative 40 degrees. And I came to work. I was like, all right, everybody was taking a cup of hot water, throwing it up in the air and like watching it freeze before it hit the ground. Right. And then, or people were doing like screenshots of their phone temperature or like the temperature in their car. And I was like, boring. Like everyone was doing the exact same thing. So it wasn't scroll stopping because everyone was just showing the same stuff. And so when I got to work, I was like, all right, what do I do? And how do I like get something fascinating with how cold it is, but then tie in like a t-shirt or something. And so I had the idea to freeze a t-shirt and see how long it would take in negative 40, versus like 32 degrees, right? Like the water freezing point should still be the same. But it might do something different here. So I handed my phone to one of our sales guys. I said, here, record this. I took t-shirt, dipped it into a bucket of water, went outside, held it up. And within a minute, it started to like freeze and basically look like a mannequin to the point where like the t-shirt I was able to stand it up on its own on the ground. So that was like the scroll stopper. It was like, whoa, like this t-shirt is like a board. And then when I picked it up, I noticed there was one little area where there was like a crease, and there was a hole in the shirt because when it froze, it like pulled the cotton apart and it made a hole in the shirt. And so I brought the shirt inside. I took it and I ripped the shirt in half like a piece of paper, basically. And so that was like the other part that caught everyone's attention. And so that one like went viral. It ended up getting picked up by a media agency who then licensed it out to like Discovery Channel and a bunch of different things. And we actually made several $1,000s on royalties on that. And the cool thing about that one was like we had the name of our business like all over the front of that t-shirt. So it was like just this whole thing. And then we were getting calls from all over the world as like we were the correspondents for the polar vortex going through the Midwest. So that one was a ton of fun. Another one I call it's like a mashup, and basically you look at the news and you see like what is the trending topic, and you figure out like how do you mash it together with something else that's happened. So maybe it's mashing together two trending topics or trending topic with something that you're doing. And that's going to create like this crazy hook that again is a scroll stopper. So on this one, it was the Pope bracket. And so and this was front page of the Wall Street Journal. So this was probably like 8 years ago when the last Pope got picked. It was during the month of March. And so the two trending things has nothing to do with t-shirts, right? Until it went viral. And then everyone's like, print the Pope bracket on a t-shirt for me. But it was, the Pope was like trending in the news for probably 2 months. But that news story kept getting old because it kept saying the same thing, like, oh, we're broadcasting live from the Vatican and there hasn't been a new Pope announced yet. Broadcasting, like same. Well, then like, that started, I think, in January or February. We get to March, and that same news story is like dying. And these reporters are trying to figure out, like, how do we put a new spin on the Pope getting selected? No one is even reading these stories anymore. They're not getting clicks, all that stuff. And so March Madness was happening. I was like, all right, March Madness is going to be like the next hot story in the sports section. What if we take all the Cardinals, put them into the brackets, and then put odds to go with them, as if like people are betting on which Cardinal is going to go to the Final Four. And so then we put all that together. It went out and it went crazy because, like I said, it was that new hook on the other story was trending mixed with everything that was coming up down the pipeline for March Madness. So the Pope brackets, I created like popebracket.com and was like, all right, print these off in your office and hand them out. And the person that, wins and has the most points in the Pope bracket gets a free t-shirt or something, or bragging rights, whatever it was. So those are just like a couple ways where, you kind of like figure out what is that different hook, what's going to get people's attention. And then once you get that media, there's ways to drive it even further with screenshots, with just doing a lot of other stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pure.
So,
gold.
How about triple net lease deals? How do you make triple net lease deals fun?
The same way, and I think it's finding out what's trending. So we've gotten some press with the deals. Some of the press is confusing because both the reporter and your everyday reader doesn't understand. So like when we were featured in the newspaper about acquiring the Applebee's, everyone thought like, oh, I'm now operating the Applebee's. Like I'm gonna come support you and like eat at your Applebee's and stuff like that. But as I try to explain, like, no, the day to day, like business as usual, nothing has changed. We just really like this real estate in this location, and Applebee's has been a great tenant and a great operator. And that's why we love this deal. And we're looking, then we sprinkle in there, like we're looking for other investors or people who want to invest in real estate deals like this in your town. So it's getting that messaging right, because it is fascinating. It's like, and I think if you get it right, the reporter and stuff are also fascinated in the dollar amount, because like, you know, when you're doing millions of dollars on a deal like that, it's like, wow, this is a big deal. And also just like, it creates kind of a little bit of that wow effect. Like, oh, I didn't know you could own Applebee's. I just thought Applebee's owned it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got your mashup for November for your triple net lease.
All right.
You gotta mash up with the no nut November.
With what?
No, I'm not gonna say it again.
I think I heard it.
All right,
Sorry.
guys. It's my wife's birthday, and we have a gala to get to later. So, Mark, I got to run, man.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming on, and we will see you next Thursday at 2:00.
Thanks, guys.
And I'll see. Yeah, if you guys want to chat and stuff like that, I gotta go. But I'll see you and the wife later, Mark. All right.
All right. See you at the gala.
All right, Tom. Take care, man. Peace.
All right. See ya.
Bye bye.